What's going on, everyone? So, the Los Angeles Lakers and their first round pick. Will they actually trade said first? Now, lots of reports came out. Lakers are expected to be aggressive. They're expected to look for trades. Andrew Wiggins is back in the trade discussion. Supposedly, the Lakers and the Miami Heat have re-engaged in trade conversations and whatnot. And the problem is that deal could get done. Supposedly, based on the reports, again, we don't know for certain, but that deal supposedly could get done if the Lakers are willing to part with that first round pick. And obviously the Lakers are reluctant to do so because if they weren't, then they would have done that and Andrew Wiggins would be a Laker. And look, maybe it still happens, right? Maybe it happens between now and, training camp because the Lakers are trying to get that done. But the Lakers also want to maintain flexibility. They also want to kind of wait off and see, can they maybe get a Giannis, get a Jokic based on reports. Now, the cap space and all that stuff kind of, you're hearing more and more people come out and be like, hey, that was kind of overblown. Like, that's not really the case. And a lot of reports have came out that, like, the Lakers' mindset and, like, opinions have completely changed since signing Luka Doncic to that long-term contract, that long-term extension, which, again, now you're more comfortable. Right? And I love hearing that the Lakers are being aggressive. Talked about how, when the Lakers sign Luka Doncic, I hope that they keep their foot on the gas. I hope that they don't look at this and go, whoo, we're good, everybody. You can put your legs up. Hopefully this was like, hey, let's keep the ball rolling. Rob Pelinka's talked about how they want to win NBA championships this season and that they believe that with LeBron James and Luka Doncic at the helm as our leaders, that they can lead us to the promised land. Right? Everything that's being said is the right thing to be said. But at the end of the day, you still gotta be willing to make the moves. And it's probably gonna cost you. Teams aren't willing to help you. Teams aren't willing to do whatever. Now, again, no trade is better than a bad trade, and you still want to remain patient. But you also don't want your patience. You want your patience to pay off, which to Rob's credit, it has been recently. But you also want to make sure that you're staying aggressive, and if that opportunity presents itself, you take it. Based on the reports, Lakers are willing to give up, Dalton Connect and whatever expiring contracts needed in order to go get a Andrew Wiggins. I imagine Rui Hachimura is probably in that deal. So, you're talking Rui, Dalton Connect, plus whatever, Maxi Kleber or Gabe Vincent. My guess is probably Gabe Vincent because I think Miami would want Gabe Vincent because his success that he had in Miami, his familiarity, he's kind of a guy that they could use. They could literally start him at the point alongside Tyler Hero. And then kind of go Norman Powell at the 3 at that point. They want to extend Norman Powell. And the whole thought process is that, they're going to set salary. But even in general, right? Like remove Andrew Wiggins and the Miami Heat from the conversation for a moment, right? Any major splash trade, any major upgrade at the wing is probably going to cost you your first, for being honest. Now, if you want to go get like a Matisse Thybulle or something like that, then no. Like that's not going to cost you your first. That shouldn't cost you your first. And if you gave up your first, then that would be absolutely foolish, right? So it just depends to what tier, what level do you want to add that guy. An Andrew Wiggins type of guy is probably a guy. If you want a guy like an Andrew Wiggins, a Herb Jones, a Trey Murphy, any of these like kind of higher end, Miles Bridges, guys like that, any of these kind of higher end wing guys, you're going to have to give up at least your first round pick. Andrew Wiggins might be on the cheaper end if we're being honest, right? So if you're the Lakers, you have to be prepared more likely than not to have to part with that first if you want to get that significant win. Otherwise, go get, like I mentioned, a guy like a Matisse Thybulle or like a Josh Green or somebody like that. Somebody that can come in that you could probably get for a second round pick or maybe some pick swaps or something. Or, a team just kind of wants to get off their salary and it's like, okay, like we'll do this deal. And that's kind of the hope with Andrew Wiggins, to bring in loop back in the Andrew Wiggins situation, is the Lakers are hoping that Miami wants to get off a salary enough to where the Lakers can be like, hey, well, we're doing you a huge favor, right? Like, and that Miami will bite in that. Because, yes, if Miami wants to clear salary, there is an inherent built-in value to that. Right? we already saw Miami have to give up an asset just to get off a Highsmith. So if you're the Lakers, you have that already in the back of your mind. You have that connect. You know, like, hey, like you guys already had to give up an asset to get off expiring contract that was small enough that almost every team in the league could have traded for, and a player that every team in the league could use. And yet you still had to give up a second round pick. So you want us to give up assets for a guy that you might have to give up assets to get off of his contract because he's making $30 million next year or over $30 million next year? We're clearing that off the books for you so you can retool and, do whatever. Right? Like that has a built-in inherent value. It's why, like I've talked about, like Lakers' best bet is to find those teams that want to clear the salary, want to get off of guys. Like that's where they're going to find the value. But that likely becomes more and more realistic once we get closer to the trade deadline. Talked about how the Lakers' expiring contracts, they're appreciating assets. The longer we can hold on to them, the more valuable they will become. The longer we can kind of hold off on making a big trade, the more valuable those will become because you're going to have more teams involved. Right? You're going to have teams that thought that they were going to be good that aren't, teams that don't want to be good that are. And, you're going to have teams that kind of just, a certain guy's not working out and they just want to get off of him. Or, you get a team like Miami's that's like, all right, fine, let's just clear the salary type thing, right? Like you want that opportunistic situational level trade to kind of present itself. And it's like, okay, boom, we can jump on that. Let's get this, let's do that and get that done. Right? And look, maybe it is the Andrew Wiggins trade. Maybe it's another trade. Maybe it's a Miles Bridges trade because they're like, hey, we're going to have to start paying people soon or whatever. So let's get off of his contract so we can start paying, Brandon Miller and guys like that. Like, again, there's also guys that we're not even thinking about right now that may end up becoming available at the trade deadline. There may be, there's probably a handful of guys we're not thinking about, both higher tier like and Andrew Wiggins, and lower to mid tier like a Matisse Thybulle or something like that. It's just the Lakers staying the course and being patient for that. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if you're the Lakers, are you willing and truly willing to part with your first? It's one thing to say like, yeah, the right deal comes along, right? It's like, yeah, but what's that right deal? Right? Like, is that right deal is like Giannis, or is that right deal again like an Andrew Wiggins type? Or is it or are we getting warmer with Andrew Wiggins? Is Andrew Wiggins kind of like, hey, that's the right direction, but we'd want somebody a little like a Miles Bridges, like sticking with him, right? If you get a Miles Bridges, like, yeah, we'd give up a first for Miles Bridges because he's younger, right? Or maybe, an RJ Barrett or something like that. Somebody that's younger, maybe the Lakers would be like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll give up the first for that guy. But Andrew Wiggins, given his age and his contract and everything else, if that's the case, then fine. I get that. I understand that. And you're right. You should. I do think that would be an overpay. Right? Which I'm not against you overpaying, but it has to make sense. It has to be justified. In order for that to really make sense and be justified, I think you need to see what you have. I think you need to see, how does this roster look? Like, what guys kind of rise to the top? I don't want you just throwing out your only tradable first, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we really didn't need Andrew Wiggins because Jake LaRavia is really good, and it's like what we really need is like a Malik Monk type guy, but now you can't get that because you traded all your assets and all your players and everything like that. Right? Like I want a guy like, I'd love to get a guy like an Andrew Wiggins, some of that before training camp. So you have that full training camp, you have that full preseason. You can really start to build and mold, get as much reps and chemistry and whatnot as possible together. That would be the ideal scenario if you could make that happen and you could pull that off. But it's not something that I necessarily want the Lakers to rush to the door to overpay. It's not something that I think is going to be so, like, I don't think Andrew Wiggins is going to be a hard fit, right? To where it's like, man, like, you got to do it now, right? Because you need that extra time. There's like, I think Andrew Wiggins, he's old enough. He's a veteran. He's going to know, come in, slot in, play my role, and we're off to the races. And look, Lakers with Andrew Wiggins on paper would be one of, if not the best starting fives on paper. Talking Luka, Austin Reeves, Andrew Wiggins, LeBron James, and DeAndre Ayton would be one of, if not the best starting fives in all of basketball on paper. But we've seen, especially as Laker fans, paper doesn't always translate. right? Like we've had some crazy teams on paper that just didn't translate. And there's all kinds of variables. You need guys to buy in and slot in or are willing to kind of play specific roles. Andrew Wiggins is going from being the second, third guy to maybe the fourth, fifth guy. Right? Is he willing to kind of accept that role and kind of buy into doing the dirty work and making the hustle plays and taking that while still, on some nights maybe getting only 4 field goal attempts because other guys are cooking and they're doing what they're supposed to do. The other big thing of it is like Lakers would have 3 tradable firsts next season. Right? So if they wait until the offseason, they'd have 3 tradable firsts to get something done. Now, obviously, somebody has to be available that makes sense in order to do that. And, who is that? Probably like a Giannis or a Jokic. And I've said this, if the Lakers know, right, that like Jokic is coming, Jokic is probably the more realistic one just because of his relationship with Luka. Yes, the Lakers can't call Jokic and be like, hey, are you coming to Lakers in 2 years? Or are you going to force a trade next season? But Luka can, right? Luka can call and just be like, hey, what do you think? How do you feel? Where are you at? And then relay that to Rob Pelinka. And now Rob Pelinka knows, like, if I know I need to gear up to trade for Nikola Jokic, could also be part of the reason why the Lakers are like, you know what? We're open to taking on contracts because you're going to need to, match salaries and stuff like that. If I know I'm definitely not trading any of my picks, like if I know I could get Jokic next season because he's forcing his way to the Lakers and I'd have 3 tradable firsts, Austin Reeves, I'd have I could put together an actual comparable package that makes sense, right? Like if I could do something like that, like, no, I'm not trading for him. I'm not doing anything. I'm not giving up my first. But if the Lakers don't know, I don't want the Lakers to miss out on opportunities in the hopes that maybe something will happen. If you can get a clear, like if you can get Andrew Wiggins right now, get an Andrew Wiggins right now. And then whatever little minor trades and minor moves you need to make, you can make at the trade deadline. Like I said, little tweaks or whatever, or maybe a consolidation trade just to kind of get a more higher end bench guy or something like that. Then you do that. I wouldn't bet on the Lakers trading their first. I think the Lakers will do whatever they have to not trade their first. I think they might even slightly overpay in like the pick swap area and stuff like that to not have to trade that first just so they can have that. I just don't want them to miss out on opportunities. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.